I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign.
I don't know how to do these breakdown videos. Like, I've had so many, so I might just break them down into individual ones. Okay, this has one that I think will cover two of these. It was two of them, which I still think about this tournament. Okay, so here goes. We had a Bass and Bucks championship on Rayburn back in September. Okay, we always used to have championships in September for the Bass and Bucks. So we're talking at least 10 years ago, maybe 11 or 12. And because I know in my last video I just put out, I talked about winning a legend, right? Something had happened. Either I had sold my legend and was waiting on my new one or whatever, but we decided, I was talking to the owner, Randy Qualls, and he was like, hey, I got this pretty much brand new legend with an Evinrude on it. Go out there and you can go fish the championship with it. I said, okay, thanks, man. Like that's how Randy and Legend used to do things. Like, they were really cool about it. So I think this thing had like, I don't even know if it had 10 or 15 hours on it. Maybe it had like 8 or something. And we always joke around about new boats. So the fact that when we sell our boats, sometimes some of us sell it after a year or two, we always talk about like the worst time to get a new boat, or the part we don't like, is like the first 10 to 20 hours. It's just always been like that. Sometimes the first 10 to 20 hours are when things go wrong, little stuff here and there. I've had a motor one time where the fuel rail, I was practicing for a Red River event, Red River. It was a Bassmaster Open. I literally drove it from the factory and started breaking it in on the Red River while I was practicing. Within 2 hours, I think, like it shut down on me. Luckily, it was a long story, man. A guy named Paul was with me. He was a cop down there, and he ended up calling. I didn't even know. I met him on the bank, and he went practice with me. He was in the event. Me and him are still good friends to this day. He ended up radioing it in. We got towed in by the police. It was really cool. What ended up happening was, it was just a fuel rail. Like, they had to replace the whole fuel rail assembly and everything. So it's just a bad one, right? I mean, there was no way to really know it. So, like I said, sometimes things happen to motors, right? Or boats or whatever, and the first couple hours is usually, first 10 to 20 hours is usually when we find out. So anyways, we got this boat. I was like, oh, it's a brand new boat, we should be fine. So we took off day one. So we're fishing out of it, you know, everything's fine. Right off the bat, and the water was really low, and we're going around throwing top waters, and I was throwing a wake bait. I was actually throwing like the Strike Pro Hunchback wake bait. And we're going around, and we're catching some fish, and I mean, I throw up there in the dirt. I mean, like I said, the water was really low, so like it's been a long time since I've even seen it that low. And there's a whole bunch of stumps around, because when the water gets low, there's more stumps, and you see them all. So like, we're kind of weaving our way through these stumps, and I throw up there, and I mean, an absolute tank eats this wake bait. It was a bait that scared us to land fish. For whatever reason, and I kind of know the reasons about how it's designed and how they ate it. Like, they never ate it, since it was a wake bait, and fish eat wake bait's a lot different than top waters. They don't blow up on them usually. They kind of roll on them, and so they rarely get it inside their mouth. You're usually hooking them like somewhere on the outside of the mouth. And so it's the championship. First place is a brand new boat, like a nice boat, like a brand new 20-something foot Ranger, like $50,000 boat at the time. So I hook it, and it's in like a foot of water, and it can't go anywhere except to the side. So it's taken off, but there's stumps everywhere, and the stumps are like that far out of the water. So I'm like trying to keep my line up and have it not wrap around the stump, and it's going to the side, but there's bank there as well, because we were kind of like in this little bitty pocket of stumps, and I'm doing this. I can't turn her. I can't do anything with it, and we both know. And so like I was like, Brent, man, like, I'm just gonna pull as hard as I can before because she was trying to go the other way, and I can't turn my boat. because of the stumps. So like we're kind of wedged in there, and as it does this, like it's close, but it's not really close. We had a long net, and I said, man, just go try to get her. So he reaches out there with one arm and gets her in the net, right? But the net isn't, the bottom of the net isn't like laid out, because he's just kind of got it on the water, right, with one hand, and it gets in the net. But it's still, I mean, I've only had it on for like 10 seconds. So it's still trying to go crazy. You can't pick up, it was like a 9 or 10 pounder. You can't pick that up with the net one-handed as you're reached out there as far as you possibly can. He was trying to drag it closer. Now the bait and the fish are hung up in the net, but it can't fall down in the water, right? And so as he's trying to bring it back, it flips over, right? It flips over. Well, he does the right thing. He flips the net over too, to like capture it on that side. And he has it, and when he brings it up, the fish finally, like it, this is the bad part about hooks, right? And that's why I always tell everyone, I know I'm kind of going everywhere with this, but we were talking about hooks and about good hooks and bad hooks and like bending out hooks. 9 times out of 10, when you bend out hooks, it's usually when you catch them and you get them in a net. Like the net, it hangs up on the net, and then that's what usually pulls them. So he had it, and I guess because it pulled off, and we lost that fish right off the bat in the morning. And this is for, I mean, we're a couple of young guys, and I'm like, man, like this changes. Tournaments like that, I'm not saying change your career, but man, 20 to 25,000 after, 50,000, but after you split it, that's in an entire year. Like if you have a pretty good year and then add on 25,000 when you're in your early 20s, or whatever time it is, I mean, that's a lot of money. And I was just, it come off. We couldn't do anything about it. We sat right there. We didn't even talk. Like none of us were mad, because we were just in a bad situation. It was like the whole, I mean, sometimes that's what you have to do, right? There's nothing we could do about it. I don't think he did anything wrong. I don't think I did anything wrong. Looking back, could I have like taken my chances and fought it? And I would have had to have fought it around the boat. But if it had ever gotten hung up, I don't know how long it would have taken to move the boat, back it out, turn around, do all these different, like it would have taken a minute or two while it's hung up on a stump. If that happened, like we took a chance. It almost worked. So anyways, we get to fishing again. I ended up catching like a 6-pounder right after that. I wasn't even excited when I caught it. I was still like, we got it in the net, and I was just like, because all you can think about is that 9 to 10 pounder. I'm like, what would we have had right now with a 9 or a 10 pounder? So we ended up doing pretty good. We weighed them in. We're in first. We're leading the event. We had like a little over 20 pounds. Maybe we had like right under 19 pounds. Maybe we had like 1990 or 20, something. But we're leading. I think we got a pound lead or a half-pound lead, and I'm like, but in the back of your mind, right, all you think about is that big one. And so I was going, okay, we're still in it. We got him, I guess. But there's that feeling inside of you that like, man, it's there. And you know that like what could have been. So it's a 2-day event. So we wake up the next day, we're driving down the lake, and we get about a mile from our spot, and we break down. And all we could do was idle at this point. It didn't shut off all the way, but we could idle. So we idled all the way up, and we started fishing. So we're fishing, and we're like, okay, we got to figure out something, because the day before we caught them up to about 10 or 11 o'clock. We stayed there till about 12 and eventually left because we stopped getting bit around 10 o'clock. Like just that style of fishing wasn't any good anymore, and so we had to go change it up. And we still caught a couple times, but so we get there and we start fishing and we start catching them. And same deal, we start catching them pretty good. But we know we still can't do anything. So I happen to call up Randy. Randy just happened to be up there at Rayburn. And I called the tournament director, told him this whole story. I said, what do we need to do? He told us, I think Randy drove by him. They checked his boat, and he had a boat. And he was like, hey, just borrow ours, and we'll get yours towed away. So they got there. But, that all takes time. So they didn't get to us till like 12 o'clock. This was a September event. I think weigh-in was at 2 because we started at 6, 8-hour day, ended at 2. So he got there around 12. We stopped catching them at about 9:30. We had like 20 pounds, I believe. Like, I think we almost had them better than the day before. So we got them, but we wanted to leave. Like, we knew right then and there at about 9:15 when we stopped catching them, like, hey, we're never gonna get another bite. We need to leave, but we couldn't. So like we lost like 2 to 3 hours in there. By the time he showed up at 12 and got everything switched over, like we didn't even like switch everything over. We just like took certain rods that we knew we did. Because we only had like an hour, probably about an hour and a half at the most to fish, because we still had to run. We had to run to where we wanted to go fish and had to run back. So anyways, we ended up getting out there, had like another hour and 15 minutes. We culled twice up to like 20 and a half. Like we were catching them. Like as soon as we left, we ended up catching like 10 or 12 more fish. Had 5 or 6 more that blew up and missed. I mean, like I said, we were on them. We get to the weigh-in knowing though that like you just had that feeling. So we showed up and we ended up weighing in. We were in first and we were loading our boat up and everything, and we heard a rumor that someone had weighed in and beat us. So we got back there and they had weighed in. We weighed in 20 something, they weighed in 20 something. I think they were in 3rd place going into it. They beat us by 0.04, not 0.4, 0.04. First place was a brand new $50,000 Ranger, maybe even more than that. Second place was $4,000. So the big fish, losing big fish, no, like that's part of it. The breakdown though, the breakdown is what bothered us the most. Yes, the big fish would have won it, but the breakdown causing us like 2 to 3 hours of not really getting to do what we wanted to do. It'd have been different if we went out there in the final couple hours and didn't catch anything. But we were like, we just needed to leave that area. Like there was a different way to catch them and we knew how to. And that one to this day still, it's probably not the worst one. It's close though. I've got one that's way worse than that, but that one's close because of it could have gone either way, right? It could have been the big fish or it could have been the breakdown. And that one was hard. There's a 2-year period, and a lot of these stories are all going to happen in this 2-year period. I learned a lot from this 2-year period, but that's where that was one of them. I'll try to make a little series of these because these get almost more heartbreaking. So anyways, that's the first one, guys. So hope you enjoyed it. See y'all.